Marcus had finished a long day of Navy SEAL training. His body ached from the hours of physical exercises, tactical drills, and mental focus exercises. But he felt satisfied. He knew the training kept him ready for anything, and he carried the discipline and calmness into every part of his life. That night, he was heading home after a late session. The streets were quiet, mostly empty except for a few cars passing by. Streetlights flickered above, casting soft shadows on the asphalt, and the air was cool against his skin. Marcus enjoyed these quiet moments. Driving calmly, he allowed himself a small sense of peace after an intense day. As he approached an intersection, he noticed flashing red and blue lights in his rearview mirror. Marcus's heart remained steady. He knew being pulled over could happen at any time, and his training reminded him to stay calm. He slowly reduced his speed and pulled his car to the side of the road. His hands rested on the steering wheel, open and visible, showing that he had no intention of hiding anything. He kept his eyes on the mirror, observing the approaching officers carefully. The first officer reached Marcus's car and shined a flashlight through the windshield. The light was bright and focused, highlighting Marcus's calm expression. "Good evening, sir. Do you know why I stopped you?" the officer asked. Marcus shook his head slightly. "No, officer. I am not sure. Can you please tell me?" His voice was calm and clear, steady even though he sensed the tension building in the air. The officer took a few steps back, gesturing for Marcus to keep his hands visible. Another officer appeared on the other side of the car. They moved cautiously, their hands near their holsters. Marcus remained still, aware that any sudden motion could be dangerous. He remembered the training that emphasized observation and controlled action in high-pressure situations. His eyes scanned the officers' positions, noting every detail, the way they held their guns, the distance between them and their movements. Suddenly, one of the officers shouted, "Hands where I can see them! Don't move!" Marcus froze. He raised both hands slowly, keeping them open and clearly visible. "I am not moving quickly, officer. I am cooperating," he said, keeping his tone calm but firm. He wanted them to understand he posed no threat. Despite his compliance, he could feel the tension in the air. He could sense the officers were cautious, unsure about what he might do. Marcus knew that fear could make people act in unexpected ways. He remembered a lesson from training. In moments like this, clarity and calmness were more powerful than speed or force. He spoke again, more clearly this time. "I am a Navy SEAL. I have no intention of causing harm. Please tell me what you need from me and I will follow your instructions." The officers hesitated, surprised by his clear and steady voice. Marcus kept his hands in view, resting lightly on the steering wheel, showing he was not trying to intimidate or resist. Time seemed to stretch as the officers approached slowly. Every sound was amplified. The slight hum of his car engine, the faint rustling of leaves in the wind, and the soft tap of shoes on the pavement. Marcus stayed alert but controlled. He focused on breathing steadily, keeping his mind clear. He knew that even a single mistake in judgment could escalate the situation quickly. One officer suddenly crouched slightly, holding his weapon with both hands. Marcus's heart beat faster, but he remained calm. He understood the officer was cautious, reacting to the unknown. Marcus stayed still, speaking again. "I am cooperating fully. Please let me know what you need. I will do everything exactly as you ask." His voice was firm and respectful, showing no anger or fear. For a moment, silence filled the night. Marcus and the officers watched each other carefully, each aware of the other's skills and awareness. The night felt tense, but Marcus's calmness and clarity helped slow the rising panic. He remained patient, knowing that keeping a steady mind and following instructions was the best way to ensure everyone stayed safe. The night air felt colder now as Marcus continued to keep his hands on the steering wheel. The flashing lights from the police cars reflected off the windows of nearby buildings, painting the street in alternating red and blue patterns. He could see the officers moving cautiously around his car. Each step they took was deliberate, measured, and careful. Marcus stayed calm, reminding himself that his training prepared him for tense situations. He needed to stay alert, aware, and composed. The lead officer returned to the passenger side of Marcus's car and shined the flashlight through the window. "Step out of the vehicle slowly," he commanded. Marcus's eyes followed the officer's movements. He considered his options carefully. Training taught him to respond with control, not panic. He lifted his hands slightly but remained seated, "Officer, I can step out carefully," he said in a calm voice. "I will do exactly as you ask. Please tell me when I can move." The officer hesitated, exchanging a glance with the other officer. Both seemed tense, unsure if Marcus might move too quickly or make a sudden gesture. Marcus realized the fear in their actions was not personal. It came from the uncertainty of the moment. He spoke again, keeping his tone steady. "I am unarmed and mean no harm. Please guide me and I will follow your instructions." The officers nodded slightly, though the caution in their eyes remained. Marcus slowly opened the door, keeping his hands raised as he stepped onto the street. He moved with deliberate care, each step controlled and predictable. The officers moved back slightly to give him space, their weapons still drawn but not raised fully. Marcus's training helped him remain calm under stress, and he knew that showing cooperation clearly was the best way to reduce tension. One officer spoke again, his voice firm. "Turn around slowly and place your hands on your head." Marcus complied immediately, raising his hands above his head and slowly turning to face the officers. His movements were slow and clear, showing no sign of aggression. The officers began to lower their weapons slightly, still alert but less tense. Marcus's calm behavior seemed to surprise them. Another officer approached and asked for identification. Marcus reached into his pocket slowly and retrieved his ID, holding it clearly so they could see it without reaching into the car. "Here's my ID," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I am a Navy SEAL. I am trained to respond in tense situations, but I am following your instructions. I want to cooperate fully." The officer took the ID and examined it carefully. Marcus waited patiently, his eyes scanning the area for any other potential risks, staying aware but not alarmed. The tension in the air began to shift. The officers' movements became less sharp, more controlled, as they realized that Marcus posed no immediate threat. Marcus kept his hands visible at all times, demonstrating trust and respect for their authority. "I understand your caution," he said. "These situations are stressful for everyone. I want to make sure no one gets hurt, including myself." The officers asked a few more questions, which Marcus answered clearly and politely. He explained why he was driving late at night, why he had reacted calmly but with caution, and that he had no weapons or harmful intentions. Each answer helped reduce the officer's anxiety, showing that he was thoughtful and cooperative. Slowly, the lead officer lowered his weapon entirely, signaling a small but important change in the situation. Marcus's calmness, discipline, and clear communication had turned a potentially dangerous encounter into a manageable one. He remained aware of his surroundings, knowing that sudden movements or misunderstandings could still cause problems. Finally, the officers asked Marcus to step back toward his car. He followed their instructions exactly, moving slowly and deliberately. The officer's posture relaxed slightly, though they maintained a professional awareness. Marcus realized that staying calm, speaking clearly, and demonstrating trust was the key to resolving the situation safely. By the time he returned to his vehicle, Marcus felt a small sense of relief. The tension had not fully disappeared, but the danger had reduced significantly. The night was still quiet, and the flashing lights reflected softly on the street. Marcus adjusted his seatbelt and took a slow breath. His training had guided him through a potentially dangerous moment, and his patience and control had kept everyone safe. Marcus felt the weight of the night pressing around him as he remained outside his car. The street was quiet, yet the flashing red and blue lights from the police vehicles made every shadow seem sharper. He kept his hands visible, palms open, moving slowly when necessary. Every muscle in his body was tense but controlled. Training as a Navy SEAL had taught him to react quickly and carefully, but also to remain calm and clear-minded. He knew that the smallest mistake could change everything in an instant. The lead officer took a step closer, speaking in a firm voice. "Sir, we need to know why you reacted that way." Someone reported unusual behavior. "Did you hear us?" Marcus nodded, keeping his hands raised. "Yes, officer. I heard you. I did not want to move too quickly because I knew it could look threatening. I am cooperating fully and following your instructions." His voice was calm, steady, and respectful. He made sure to speak slowly, emphasizing clarity so there could be no misunderstanding. Another officer shifted slightly to the side, keeping his eyes on Marcus while holding his weapon. Marcus noticed the tension in the officer's stance. He understood that fear and uncertainty often guided people's reactions. especially in situations where they were unsure about another person's intentions. Marcus raised his hands a little higher, showing he had no hidden items. "I am not a threat. I am trained to respond carefully, but I am following your directions," he said. Suddenly, a loud shout came from one of the officers. "Hands, don't move!" Marcus froze immediately, holding still. The shout was sharp, and Marcus could tell the officer was alarmed. One of the officers had seen a movement that they interpreted as dangerous. Marcus realized this could escalate quickly. His heart beat faster, but his mind remained clear. He thought carefully about his next actions, knowing that calm decisions would prevent harm. Marcus raised his voice slightly, keeping it firm but controlled. "I am not moving quickly. I am cooperating fully. Please give me clear instructions and I will follow them." The officers hesitated, trying to understand whether Marcus's words matched his behavior. Marcus kept his hands visible and moved slowly to demonstrate he had no harmful intent. The lead officer motioned for Marcus to step back a few feet from the car. Marcus complied immediately, walking slowly with his hands clearly raised. Each step was measured and deliberate, showing that he understood the need for caution. The officers began to lower their weapons slightly, although they remained alert. Marcus noticed the shift in tension, a small sign that patience and control were working. As he moved, Marcus spoke again. "Officer, I am trained to handle tense situations, and I am keeping calm to make sure no one gets hurt. I want to cooperate completely. Please tell me the next step." His words were steady and his tone was respectful. The officers paused, recognizing his clear thinking and calm demeanor. Marcus's training had taught him to stay aware of every detail. He noticed small things, the way the officers' feet moved, the slight tension in their shoulders, and the way they kept their eyes on him. He used this information to adjust his own actions, keeping them predictable and safe. Each movement he made was intentional, showing respect and cooperation while protecting himself. The night air felt thick, filled with tension and uncertainty, but Marcus remained grounded. He stayed alert, controlled, and patient. He realized that the situation could have become dangerous if either side had acted impulsively. His discipline and calm behavior prevented a mistake that might have led to unnecessary conflict. Finally, one officer stepped back slightly, lowering his weapon further. Marcus continued to follow instructions exactly. His focus on patience, awareness, and clear communication had begun to change the atmosphere. The officers were still cautious, but the sharp fear in their movements had eased a little. Marcus stayed ready, knowing that one wrong step could undo the progress. But he felt confident that careful actions and calm words could keep the situation safe. By maintaining control, showing cooperation, and using his training wisely, Marcus had turned a potentially dangerous encounter into a manageable situation. Every movement he made was careful, every word deliberate, and every thought focused on keeping everyone safe while maintaining trust. Marcus kept his hands raised, his body relaxed but ready, aware of every detail around him. The officers had stepped back slightly, but their eyes were alert and their hands hovered near their weapons. The tension in the night was thick, and every small sound, the hum of his car engine, the rustling of leaves, even distant traffic, felt amplified. Marcus understood that the situation could change in an instant, and he needed to stay calm and controlled. He spoke clearly, his voice steady and respectful. "Officer, I am following your instructions. I am trained to stay calm in tense situations. I want to cooperate completely. Please tell me what you need me to do next." His words were measured, precise, and full of respect. He knew that clear communication could prevent misunderstandings and help the officers see that he posed no threat. The lead officer motioned to his partner and spoke quietly, clearly trying to calm the situation. Marcus noticed the officers were beginning to hesitate less aggressively, though caution still ruled their actions. The moment was delicate. Marcus kept his eyes on the lead officer, waiting for instructions, but also observing the smaller details, the way the officer's shoulders were set, the slight tension in their arms, and the way their feet shifted. Every small movement told him something about their state of mind. "Sir," the lead officer said, "we just need to make sure everything is safe. Can you step to the side slowly while keeping your hands visible?" Marcus nodded and took small, deliberate steps, keeping his palms open and facing the officers. Each movement was controlled and predictable. His calm demeanor seemed to influence the officers, reducing the tension in their voices and body language. Marcus understood that patience was critical, He had been in high-pressure situations where any sudden action could have dangerous consequences. He kept his breathing steady, controlling both his mind and body. "I understand why you are cautious," he said, his voice calm and respectful. "I want to make sure no one is in danger. I am cooperating fully." The officers began to lower their weapons a little, a clear sign that Marcus's calm and careful behavior was working. They still maintained caution, but the immediate fear had started to fade. Marcus stayed alert, keeping his hands clearly visible and his movements deliberate. He knew that showing respect and patience could help build trust even in tense circumstances. One officer spoke again, softer this time. "Can you explain why you reacted that way earlier?" "It was unusual." Marcus nodded, choosing his words carefully. "I reacted calmly because I wanted to avoid sudden movements that might be misunderstood. I am trained to stay composed in tense situations. I was following instructions and trying to make sure everyone stays safe." The lead officer listened carefully, exchanging a glance with his partner. Marcus noticed that their posture had relaxed slightly. He continued, keeping his tone calm and honest. "I am a Navy SEAL. My training helps me respond carefully and clearly, even under pressure. I want to cooperate fully and follow your instructions to make this situation safe for everyone." For the first time since the stop began, Marcus sensed a real shift in the mood. The officer's fear had started to be replaced by cautious understanding. Marcus remained still but patient, knowing that trust was earned in moments like this through steady behavior and clear communication. He moved just enough to follow instructions, never hurried, never careless. Slowly, the lead officer motioned for Marcus to take a step back toward his car. Marcus complied carefully, moving in small, deliberate steps. The officer's weapons were no longer raised fully. The tension in the air had decreased, replaced by an uneasy calm. Marcus realized that staying patient, focused, and respectful had turned the situation from dangerous to manageable. The night was quiet again, but the flashing red and blue lights still painted the street. Marcus breathed steadily, knowing that he had avoided escalation through discipline, clear communication, and awareness. He stayed alert, ready to respond if needed, but he felt a quiet relief. The situation was slowly improving and everyone's safety was intact. Marcus's calm and controlled behavior had created a path toward resolution. He continued to follow instructions, showing respect, patience, and awareness. His training, focus, and understanding of high-pressure situations had made a difference. The night was tense, but Marcus had turned it into a controlled and safe encounter through careful action and clear communication. Marcus stood by his car, his hands still raised but relaxed, keeping his body calm and controlled. The officers were now less tense, but their attention remained on him. He could see the change in their posture, the way their shoulders were no longer tight and the way they lowered their weapons slightly. Marcus understood that patience and steady behavior were slowly turning the situation in a safer direction. He remained alert, aware that one wrong move could undo all the progress he had made. The lead officer spoke again, his voice softer now. "Sir, can you explain why you reacted so calmly at first? Most people would panic." Marcus nodded, keeping his voice clear and respectful. "I am trained to stay calm in stressful situations. My training as a Navy SEAL teaches me to observe, assess, and act carefully. I wanted to follow your instructions and avoid making sudden movements that might be misunderstood. My goal was to keep everyone safe." The officers listened, and Marcus noticed that their expressions had softened slightly. They still maintained caution, but the fear and uncertainty that had been present earlier had begun to fade. Marcus realized that his calm and controlled behavior had helped them see he posed no threat. He stayed steady, keeping his hands visible and his movements predictable. "Can you step a little closer to the curb?" the lead officer asked. Marcus complied carefully, moving slowly with deliberate steps. He kept his palms open and visible at all times. His breathing was steady, and his eyes scanned the environment calmly, noting the positions of the officers and any potential hazards. Every movement was intentional, showing that he was focused on cooperation and safety. The officer continued, "We just want to understand what happened. No one wants this to turn dangerous." Marcus nodded. "I understand completely, officer. I want to cooperate fully. I am explaining clearly because I want everyone to stay safe. I am following your instructions exactly." His tone was calm and respectful, showing that he was not trying to argue or challenge authority, but rather to create understanding. As he spoke, another officer approached, lowering his weapon fully. Marcus noticed the subtle shift in energy. The officers were beginning to trust that he was following instructions and posed no danger. He stayed patient, not rushing or making sudden movements, knowing that trust needed to be earned step by step. Marcus's training had taught him to observe not only actions but emotions as well. He could tell from the way the officers moved and spoke that they were starting to realize this was a misunderstanding. He continued, speaking calmly. "Officer, I understand that this is a tense situation. My behavior may have seemed unusual, but I am trained to respond carefully and clearly in moments like this. I want to make sure that everyone is safe, including you, me, and anyone nearby." The lead officer took a deep breath and nodded slightly. "Thank you for explaining that. Your cooperation helps us a lot." Marcus kept his hands visible, lowering them slightly while remaining ready and aware. The officer's tone was now calmer, their commands less sharp. The situation that had been full of tension was beginning to settle. Finally, the lead officer motioned for Marcus to return to his vehicle. Marcus walked slowly and deliberately, following instructions exactly. He opened the door carefully and sat down, keeping his hands visible on the steering wheel. The officers watched him, still cautious but no longer tense. The immediate danger had passed, replaced by understanding and controlled caution. Marcus breathed steadily, feeling a quiet sense of relief. The situation had been potentially dangerous, but careful observation, clear communication, and patient cooperation had kept everyone safe. He realized that remaining calm under pressure, speaking clearly, and following instructions were the most important tools in resolving tense encounters. As he sat in his car, the flashing lights reflected softly on the street. Marcus remained alert but composed, ready to follow any further instructions. His calm behavior had prevented escalation, and his patience had allowed the officers to see that he posed no threat. The night was still tense, but it was now controlled, and Marcus knew that his training and discipline had made the difference. Marcus remained seated in his car, his hands resting on the steering wheel but still visible. The night felt calmer than before, though the flashing red and blue lights reminded him of the tension that had filled the street earlier. The officers moved more freely now, their postures relaxed but attentive. Marcus noticed the subtle changes in their behavior and realized that patience, discipline, and careful communication were slowly resolving the situation. The lead officer spoke again, his voice measured and calm. "Sir, we understand that this was a misunderstanding. Can you explain one more time why you reacted the way you did earlier?" Marcus nodded, his tone steady and respectful. "Officer, I reacted carefully because I wanted to avoid any sudden movements that could be misinterpreted. I am trained to stay calm under pressure and follow instructions precisely. My goal is to keep everyone safe, including you and me." The officers listened closely, their expressions softening further. Marcus could see that their confidence in the situation was returning. He kept his hands visible and his posture calm, showing that he posed no threat. Every small movement was deliberate, demonstrating patience, awareness, and respect. Another officer spoke from the side. "We appreciate your cooperation. Your behavior helped us prevent what could have been a dangerous situation." Marcus nodded slightly, keeping his voice calm. "I understand, officer. I'm glad that we are keeping everyone safe. I am cooperating fully, and I want to continue doing that until this is resolved." The lead officer stepped closer to the car and spoke in a controlled tone. "We need to confirm a few details, sir. Can you tell us where you were heading and why it was late at night?" Marcus answered without hesitation, explaining clearly and respectfully. "I was driving home after Navy SEAL training. The session ended late and I was heading straight home. I did not stop anywhere and I wanted to get home safely." The officers nodded, taking in the information. Marcus kept his hand steady, showing that he was still alert but calm. He could see that the tension had dropped significantly, replaced by careful understanding. His clear communication and patient actions had created trust, and the officers were responding accordingly. One officer moved slightly to the side, lowering his weapon fully. "Thank you for explaining. Your calm behavior has made this situation much safer for all of us." Marcus's voice remained steady. "I am glad that we can resolve this safely. I respect your work and want to make sure everyone is safe, including you, me, and anyone nearby." The lead officer nodded again. "We need to make sure everything is clear before you leave." Please remain seated while we finish our checks. Marcus stayed in his car, keeping his hands visible and his posture composed. He knew that patience and cooperation were essential to completely resolving the misunderstanding. As the officers spoke quietly among themselves, Marcus stayed alert but calm. He observed their actions, noticing that their body language no longer showed fear but focus. His clear, deliberate behavior had allowed them to regain control of the situation while keeping him safe. Marcus understood that calmness under pressure could change the outcome of tense moments. After a few minutes, the lead officer approached and spoke in a tone that was now almost neutral. "Sir, we have confirmed that everything is in order. You were cooperating fully, and this appears to have been a misunderstanding. Thank you for staying calm and following our instructions." Marcus nodded respectfully. "Thank you, officer. I appreciate your careful work. I am glad we could resolve this safely." The officers stepped back, lowering their weapons completely. The tension that had gripped the night was gone, replaced by cautious calm. Marcus adjusted his seatbelt, keeping his hands visible for a moment longer. His training, patience, and awareness had turned a potentially dangerous encounter into a safe resolution. As Marcus started to breathe more easily, he reflected on the night. Every moment had required focus, discipline, and clear communication. By staying calm, following instructions, and respecting the officer's authority, he had prevented escalation and ensured that everyone remained safe. The flashing lights continued, but now they were no longer intimidating. They were a reminder of how careful actions and patience could make a difference. The tension in the air had finally begun to lift. Marcus remained in his car, hands resting gently on the steering wheel, though he stayed alert. The officers had stepped back, lowering their weapons completely, but they were still watching carefully. Marcus could sense that the situation was approaching a safe resolution, yet he remained patient, knowing that one wrong move could change everything. The lead officer spoke calmly, his voice controlled but neutral. "Sir, we have reviewed everything and it seems there was a misunderstanding. Can you remain in your vehicle while we complete the final checks?" Marcus nodded respectfully. "Of course, officer. I will follow your instructions carefully." He stayed calm, keeping his hands visible and his posture relaxed. His steady behavior had already influenced the officers, showing them that he was cooperating fully. The officers moved around, speaking quietly to each other while keeping an eye on Marcus. Their earlier fear had faded, replaced by a professional focus on completing the necessary procedure. Marcus noticed their subtle body language, straightened shoulders, relaxed hands, and the occasional nod toward him. He realized that his patient and clear actions had earned their trust. Marcus spoke softly, his voice steady. "Officer, I want to make sure that everyone remains safe. I respect your authority and your work, and I am cooperating fully to resolve this situation calmly." The officers paused, and the lead officer nodded. "Thank you for your cooperation. Your patience and calmness have helped a lot. This could have escalated, but it did not because you stayed clear-headed." Marcus allowed himself a small, quiet breath, feeling relief slowly spreading through him. His training had not only kept him physically safe, but had also given him the mental control to prevent the situation from becoming dangerous. He understood that moments like these could be unpredictable, and every action counted. He continued to follow instructions precisely, showing patience and respect. Finally, the lead officer walked closer to the car, his voice even and neutral. "Sir, we have confirmed that everything is fine. You have followed all instructions and have been completely cooperative. You are free to go." Marcus nodded politely. "Thank you, officer. I appreciate your work and your careful handling of this situation. I am glad we could resolve this safely." The other officers stepped back and the flashing red and blue lights seemed less intense now, reflecting a return to normalcy. Marcus kept his hands visible for a moment longer, making sure that the situation was fully clear. He slowly placed his hands on the steering wheel, ready to drive but still aware of his surroundings. Every detail mattered, and he stayed alert, showing continued respect for the officer's authority. Marcus started the car engine quietly, keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. The night air was calm, and the flashing lights reflected softly on the street. The officers nodded once more, acknowledging that the encounter had been resolved without incident. Marcus felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. His patience, calmness, and clear communication had prevented a dangerous situation and allowed everyone to remain safe. As he drove slowly away, Marcus reflected on the events of the night. He thought about how quickly fear and assumptions could escalate situations, and how important it was to remain disciplined and clear-headed. His training had guided him, but his respect for the officers and careful communication had been equally important. He realized that staying calm, following instructions, and understanding the perspectives of others could make a difference in high-pressure moments. The streetlights passed by quietly as Marcus drove home. The night was calm again, though the memory of tension remained. He felt proud that he had handled the situation responsibly, without panic or aggression. Every step he had taken had been deliberate, every word measured, and every action guided by respect, awareness, and patience. By the time Marcus reached the quieter part of the neighborhood, he knew that the situation had ended safely. The officers were back in their cars, the lights no longer flashing directly at him. Marcus allowed himself to relax fully, appreciating the calmness of the night. He understood that every tense moment could be resolved peacefully with discipline, communication, and awareness. Marcus drove slowly along the quiet streets, the flashing lights of the police vehicles fading behind him. The tension that had gripped the night was now behind him, replaced by a quiet sense of relief. His heart still beat steadily from the adrenaline, but his mind was clear. He reflected on the encounter, thinking about how quickly fear and misunderstanding could escalate a situation, and how patience, calmness, and clear communication had prevented danger. As he passed familiar streetlights, Marcus considered the importance of staying disciplined under pressure. His training as a Navy SEAL had taught him to remain aware and controlled, but it was his careful choices in words and actions that had truly made the difference tonight. He realized that in high-stress situations, clear thinking and respect for others' perspectives could prevent conflict and save lives. The streets were quiet now, almost peaceful. Marcus drove with care, keeping his focus on the road but thinking about what had just happened. He understood that fear often guides actions, even for those in authority, and that calm, steady behavior can help change the course of tense encounters. Every small decision mattered. The way he moved his hands, the words he chose, the patience he maintained. Marcus remembered the officers' faces, their cautious movements, and the way their posture changed as they recognized his cooperation. He understood that trust is built slowly, step by step, especially in moments filled with uncertainty. His calm behavior had allowed the officers to see him not as a threat, but as someone who respected their authority and wanted to ensure everyone remained safe. He thought about the lessons from the night. Discipline, patience, awareness, and respect were not just parts of his training. They were tools that could be applied in everyday life. He realized that staying calm in unexpected situations could prevent misunderstandings and create safety for everyone involved. Marcus felt proud that he had followed these principles, knowing that the encounter had ended peacefully because of his careful actions. As he drove toward his neighborhood, Marcus noticed the quiet glow of homes, the subtle hum of distant traffic, and the soft rustling of leaves in the night wind. These ordinary details felt comforting after the intensity of the encounter. He reflected on how small moments of awareness and deliberate action could have a large impact, and how important it was to remain composed even when fear or uncertainty was present. Finally, Marcus reached his driveway and parked the car. He took a deep breath, feeling the relief fully settle in. The night had tested him, but he had remained calm, controlled, and respectful. He knew that the officers had also done their best under pressure, and he felt a sense of mutual understanding. The situation had been tense, but careful communication and patience had prevented it from turning dangerous. As he stepped out of the car, Marcus thought about the future. He realized that the lessons from tonight would stay with him forever. Remaining calm, communicating clearly, and respecting others' perspectives were skills that applied far beyond a single encounter. He understood that trust and safety are built through awareness, discipline, and the choices people make under pressure. Marcus walked toward his front door, reflecting on the balance between authority and cooperation, and how quickly assumptions could lead to fear or conflict. He felt grateful that the encounter had ended safely and that no one was hurt. He knew that his careful actions, combined with his training and respect for the officers, had made all the difference. Finally, Marcus entered his home and closed the door behind him. The quiet of his living room was calming, a sharp contrast to the tension of the street outside. He sank into a chair, allowing himself to relax fully. The night had been a reminder that discipline, patience, and clear communication could resolve even the most challenging situations. Marcus smiled slightly, knowing that he had handled the encounter with intelligence, respect, and courage. The events of the night would remain in his mind, not as a source of fear, but as a lesson. A lesson about calmness, awareness, and the power of careful action. Marcus knew that staying composed under pressure could protect not only himself, but everyone around him. And with that understanding, he finally felt a deep sense of peace.